In this session, we shall continue our discussion on the poem Buying and Selling by Khalil Gibran. Okay, we shall continue. In the previous session, we just had the introduction to the theme of the poem and the major themes and the background of the poet and several such things. And also, we had just discussed that the nature and the kind of Khalil Gibran's poetry. Okay, so in this session, we shall have a brief explanation. We shall have a brief explanation and bit of analysis. Okay, the deeper analysis of the poem on buying and selling. Okay, so previously, as I was telling you, that Khalil Gibran immigrated from Lebanon to America, right? So he's actually kind of a poet in exile, not exile exactly because he's not sent off by his country. He actually by the government of his country, he left Lebanon on his will to seeking his fortune in America. Okay, so he is basically an immigrant poet. Okay, you can say he's an immigrant poet who has several poetic write-ups, several poetic collections to his credit. His series of poems are gathered and collected into different groups, and they are published with a common title, right, based upon their writing style and the theme he discusses in those poems. These poems are collected and published under different titles, right? So each book of Khalil Gibran, basically he is a poet, a prose poet, not a story writer or novelist as such, a prose poet who has composed several poems, right? And these poems have been published under different different titles which encompass different books by him, right? Those titles form different books by the poet, and those are The Madman, then The Spirit Rebellious, The Wings Broken. Okay, so there are four more, a few more other collections as such. If you look at the complete book of Khalil Gibran, it's compilation of his entire write up, his entire poetry is an omnibus collection where you find all his small books put into one big collection which comes up to 800 plus pages. Okay, so if you are interested, you can have a look at that omnibus collection by Khalil Gibran. You find the complete work. Basically, it's complete work of Khalil Gibran. Okay. Then, as I was telling you, that he migrated from Lebanon to America, and most of his works follow philosophical undertones. This one of the predominant nature of his poetry, that his works follow philosophical undertones, and he actually led a diasporic life, and predominantly people who lead this kind of life. I have been repeating this point that he is an immigrant poet, so to draw your attention to the aspect of diasporic life, that it makes people little gloomy and little diasporic, they go nostalgic over their previous home. Okay, so these aspects or these themes feature in most of his poetry. Okay, and another very important feature of his works or his poetry is that his works are known for their biblical cadence. Okay, they are very rich in from references from biblical sources, and because of that, they read like parables and aphorisms, which beam with wisdom and truth. Okay, and Bible itself is a book which reads like a series of parables, right? So similar to it, being influenced from biblical sources, even Khalil Gibran's works, they read like they are series of parables, sayings, short, pithy, witty statements, okay, or truth giving, or kind of, propositional statements which profess goodness and kindness and basic human virtues, right? His works basically profess human virtues, right? So the next thing is that the emphasis is laid on here in this poem. The emphasis is laid on two basic aspects, right, of existence, in basic two basic aspects of existence. Okay, the first aspect is that the importance of nature. Okay, and hence he brings in the symbiotic bond that must ideally exist between nature and human world, right? The symbiotic bond, how do you understand it? It's a kind of bond between nature and the human world which is inseparable. Any symbiotic bond between animals or humans and nature is the reference to kind of codependent bond, okay, which exists for the goodness and the benefit of uh, both the both creatures, right? Both set of existences, right? Human beings depending upon nature, nature in turn depending upon human beings. It's a kind of inseparable, win-win kind of situation. It's a kind of bond which is beneficial and good for both the creations, okay, humans as well as nature, or humans as well as individuals. So this bond is inseparable bond of a profitable bond for both the aspects of nature, right? Both the aspects of creation. So secondly, the he focuses upon ethical values one must adhere, right, and follow while carrying out one's business. Okay, and because of this, the poem also reads like a kind of, a long sermon. It's a kind of long advice or long sermon addressed to traders, right? Who is at the receiving end here? Who are his audience in this poem? The audience in this poem basically are the target audience, basically are traders. The general audience could even be readers and, people who belong to any other background, but basically the target audience here are the business people, businessmen and traders. Okay, then he is basically professing that they should follow ethical codes in their trade, right? And he's basically professing that they should follow ethical codes of trade. Okay, they should follow some morals. They should see to it that they are not hurting uh, other people or even nature in their process of conducting business. Okay, so that is a kind of before we go to kind of, word by word and line by line analysis, this is a kind of elaborate explanation on the themes of the poem, and little more to elaborate on the background of the poet. Okay, like how you have target audience as the merchants, as the business people here. In few other poems of Khalil Gibran, you found that you can find that there are other people who are the target audience, like teachers, like fishermen, like merchants, then people who belong to clergy class. So he has different audience. Okay, for most of his poems, like in most, this is one more highlighting feature of Khalil Gibran's poetry, that when he speaks he has some target audience in mind. Okay, he has some target audience in mind. Why is it so? Because previously, as I told you, that the nature of his poems are such that they have kind of they have proverbial essence in them, right? They are, most of them give out kind of wisdom, not exactly kind of scholarly wisdom. They try to give out wisdom of human life in general. Okay, so this one foremost highlighting future of his poetry, Khalil Gibran's poetry.